Thank you, Debbie. Good afternoon, everybody. This is David Vargas with Source1 Purchasing. Happy to be able to have everybody here. I know I saw some of the associations that registered. I'm happy to see some familiar names, and I say hi to everybody that I've met personally and the ones that I haven't met. Thank you for joining us and being able to see what Source1 Purchasing can do. And as the title of the presentation says, is reopening on the mind of our members. This is something that we wanted to make sure that we could touch on. We want to make sure that we bring this, all of our possibility, all of our strengths, and everything that we know how to do to be able to assist as many associations, as many organizations and hotels to be able to be ready and good to go on this reopening process, because God willing, that's where we're at. So as we can see the agenda here for today, we do want to introduce who Source1 is, the Buyer's Edge platform, which is what powers us to be able to do what we do and be the largest GPO in the lodging segment with our capabilities and our capacities as a technology-based GPO. We do want to show you guys some of that food and beverage strategies during COVID-19 and what we found, and what with our manufacturer partners and our different partners, what we can do to really assist and show how we can help. We're going to be going through this little roundtable question session with some of our experts, and we're very happy to have some of our partners here to be able to talk about what the platform is, to be able to talk about what our relationship is with each one of the manufacturers and some of our different partners. So it's very exciting to be able to do this. And towards the end, as Debbie said, we are going to do a little question and answer. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please just type them there in the chat, and we'll make sure to answer those for you guys. So I want to be able to present to you what the Buyer's Edge platform is. This is what powers us. This is what allows us to be able to offer what we can to all of our members, to all of the different hotels that we have on our program. As you can see, we're one of about 17 different companies. We're all leading companies, leading GPOs within the segments of the hospitality industry, bringing together our buying power to be able to assist our customers and offer them the best, technology, the best GPO pricing, and most importantly, the best value and service that we possibly can. This is something that we've helped across the different associations that we have already that partner with us and that work with us with Source1 Purchasing, or our sister company, Dining Alliance. So we're very happy to be able to show you what our expertise are, how we can help with supply chain management, how we can help you with the data processing that we can show you guys, and most importantly, be able to bring together all of our abilities to be able to help our members reopen up, get ready for relaunching, and be ready to service our customers in this new world. Because as we all know, hospitality is going to be a new world where we have to re-engage our guests and re-win their confidence back, and showing them that we can protect them, they can come and enjoy coming to our hotels and being in different places, but being safe. So with that, I do want to introduce Santiago Arango. He's going to be talking a little bit more with some more points for you guys. We're more than happy to be able to assist you further, and with this, Santiago Arango. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Again, my name is Santiago Arango. To the couple associations that may be on the call, you might have met me during the ISHE conference out in Austin late last year. Seems like forever ago, but welcome everybody and appreciate you taking the time. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the key promotions some of our manufacturer partners are running right now, on top of the traditional GPO programs that we would have to offer to all of your members within your association. Something to keep in mind about is we leverage over 165,000 items under contract, which is about 40% more than the second largest GPO out there. So your members right out the gate would see great value by joining the program. But some of our preferred partners that are running some incredible promotions right now is what I'll be talking to you about, some detail on that, and also talking a little bit about some strategies that we've seen some of our members employ out in their hotels to adjust for sanitation protocols and some of those CDC guidelines as things start to open back up. But first and foremost, I'll touch on some of the manufacturers you see on the screen here. Hormel, Conagra, Tyson, Idahoan, Dr. Pure, Dr. Pepper, and those are the 5 highlighted there. An example of the added benefit some of the members would be able to get by using our program is they're running weekly promotions. And an example of that is Hormel, where they're running a weekly hot sheet where they're showing 5 to 50% savings on top of the already discounted pricing the member would be taken advantage of by using the program as something to give back to the hospitality industry, to support hotels that are trying to cut costs and trying to keep their food costs afloat. An additional benefit that they're running as well is offering an additional $5 a case in terms of a rebate back to the properties that they work with to add some additional rebate dollars into that bucket for the hotels to help during these slow times. So that's one example of what Hormel is doing specifically in the meat, sausage, bacon category to help facilitate and help with the hotels opening back up and trying to keep costs low. Some of the other manufacturers on the food side that you're seeing on the screen here, they're all running additional 10% discounts on items that we have under contract with them. So great benefit to save even more on the products you would enjoy through those well-known manufacturers across the nation. And something that we can do together with all of you association-wise is build communications so that you can send that out to your members to let them know what type of deals are available out there in the marketplace that they can take advantage of. And it's something that we're putting together actually with a partner of ours, the California Hotel Lodging Association, as we've started a partnership with them. So that's definitely something to be conscious on going into now the reopening stage of the economy and of the U.S. The second portion that I'll speak to you guys a little bit about is just some reopening strategies as it relates to the food and beverage side. So increased forward demand for grab-and-go products is going to be big from what we're seeing. We've seen hotels build these kits where they have breakfast sandwiches, fruit cups, maybe a packaged yogurt, and have that available for their guests that maybe don't feel comfortable going back to the traditional buffet style of the continental breakfast we're all familiar with. So those type of items are going to be in high demand, and making sure there's a partner out there that ensures that they can have availability of these items is going to be paramount during these times. And something that we've recommended to some of our members is try to open up a secondary account with your broadline distributor just to ensure if there's any shortages that they'll still be able to get the product as it relates to grab and go, because the demand is increasing quite a bit on there. Redesigning the breakfast area is going to be key during these times as well, and we've built some communication as well that allows hotels to be strategic in how they're going to open up with the clear social distancing guidelines. Something that's gained in popularity is directional arrows on the floor. We think you might have all seen it in supermarkets or even some hospitals, but that's gaining in popularity to ensure the flow of traffic in a breakfast area is keeping the hotel member in mind, and maybe getting the comfort level of them to be at a point where you want it to be, so that there's 6 feet of distance apart from them. And also, making sure that the hotel is being conscious about room service, as that's something we're seeing quite a bit increasing at hotels. People feeling more comfortable getting food delivered to their hotel room versus going to a breakfast area and sitting down and having breakfast like we used to. We've seen that across the board in the U.S. with Grubhub, DoorDash delivering now to people's houses, and that being more prominent. Same model reflects in the hotel, where people want their food delivered to their room just to feel comfortable. So that's something that we're communicating to our hotel members as a strategy to make sure they have appropriate kitchen staff dedicated to that type of orders that come in, and also have a food runner that potentially can be dedicated to delivering food to the different rooms that are potentially ordering breakfast. Also, managing capacity within the breakfast area is going to be key. So having hotels strategically have windows where they have their hotel guests come and grab their breakfast is another way to minimize the impact and spread of the virus, and something that people are looking for in terms of a hotel that they choose to stay at, making sure that type of policy is in place so they feel comfortable stepping out of their room and going out and getting their breakfast. And obviously, proper sanitation protocol in the breakfast area, making sure staff has masks, gloves, wiping down tables accordingly. That's something to be mindful of, and making sure the guests feel comfortable going into those areas and then feeling like it's a clean area to be in, that they're not at risk or anything. Those are just a few highlights of different strategies on the food and beverage side that we've been seeing from hotels, ranging from under 100 rooms to over 300 rooms that are more luxury or upper scale hotels that they can employ to be present during these times. So at this point, I'll transition it over to Stephen Larkin, who will go in more detail about some of the non-food programs that are available to the potential members, and introduce a couple of our expert guest speakers on the call.
Thank you, Santiago. My name's Steve Larkin, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about what we call Beyond Prime. Essentially, anything that doesn't come in on that broadline food and beverage distribution truck is what we call Beyond Prime. And we all come from working in and around hotels previously, so we know that while food and beverage is a very large part of what we spend our money on, that there are a lot of other categories and supplies that are being purchased outside of that. And so in the spirit of being that full service GPO, we want to make sure that we have your purchases covered from top to bottom. So what you see here on the slide is really just a very small sampling of what we have available. We do have over 800 suppliers in our Beyond Prime program portfolio, but I want to make sure that we highlight, a couple of the ones that are joining us today on this call that'll be participating in the webinar. HT Supply, one of the largest MRO and OS&E suppliers in the industry, and Cintas, beyond anybody else out there, really robust program, including uniform rentals and services and so on. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But again, it's important to take a look at what it is that you're purchasing, especially as we venture into this new normal, not understanding what traveler habits are going to look like and what the volume is coming by, that every category, top to bottom, that you're under national account pricing, because we want to help you protect that profitability of your operation. And again, food and beverage and understanding how to drive the profitability there to lower that cost per occupied room as much as you can is certainly one side of the coin. But taking a look at some other categories that maybe didn't have as much focus previously, going into a season where we might be seeing decreased occupancy for who knows how long, let's make sure that anything that you are spending your money on, that you are getting your best value for your dollar paid. And in the spirit of getting that best value for dollar paid, Santiago, would you please skip to the next slide? We've worked with several of our Beyond Prime partners in order to help you through these difficult times. So just a couple of the ones that I want to call out. Esper Gas is one that you probably haven't heard of, but they are the largest gas supplier to the medical and industrial space, and they do have strong capabilities in food service as it relates to CO2 and nitrogen for fountain sodas, draft beer, wine dispensers. And so knowing that we are in this period of uncertainty, first and foremost, it is an extremely competitive program where I've seen upwards of 30 and 40% savings over street accounts. But just to help sweeten the deal and really help our operators, they're offering 50% off of your first month invoices once you switch over to the Esper Gas program. A couple more that I'm going to call out is It's a Checkmate, really neat solution for anybody that's using third-party delivery services and using more than one of them, being able to integrate them all into a single tablet instead of having 4, 5, 6 different tablets sitting next to your POS. So being able to minimize that real estate or that equipment that's taking up that space on the counter next to your point of sale, but additionally being able to plug directly into your point of sale, so that way nobody has to key in those orders. And then every time an Uber Eats, a DoorDash, a Postmates order comes in, it fires right to your point of sale. Nobody has to touch it, prints right up in the kitchen, clearly labeled who it's for and where it's going. And they are offering 1 month month for free by joining their program and instituting that service. So again, knowing that we're spending our money, that we have these other categories that are out there that hotels, restaurants, food service operations are utilizing, we want to make sure that we partner with really strong, really great suppliers that are also willing to come to the table and help operators when we need it the most. So I'm very happy for all of our Beyond Prime suppliers and want to tell you a little bit more about the two that have joined us today. Santiago, if you skip to the next slide, please. So first and foremost, HD Supply, as I mentioned, the largest distributor of MRO and OS&E products. They do run their own trucks out of 40 distribution centers nationwide. So no matter where you're at, most likely you are within 1 day of getting HD Supply products. And at $50 for a minimum order, it's an extremely low order minimum in order to make sure that you're maximizing every dollar that you're spending, that you're not spending any money on additional freight where you don't need to. And speaking of spending money, making sure that you align to national account pricing is key. And so the Buyer's Edge platform program does offer 5% off of the lowest published price on the web, but more importantly, we have specific contracted pricing on those items that are most important to the lodging and hospitality industry. So I'm really happy that the three of my friends from HD Supply are joining me here today to participate in the roundtable. But I want to talk a little bit more about the other two that we have on the call today. If you would, Santiago, I'd like to go over a little bit about our Cintas program. Again, this is a huge supplier. Everybody has seen Cintas everywhere. They touch so many different industries, and lodging is absolutely one of those industries that should be leveraging the capabilities of being able to consolidate so many services onto one trusted supplier. So under the uniform side, we do have uniform rental, uniform purchase, even rental of name brand products like Carhartt. And then if we step over into more of that protection side, we've got their fire protection and their first aid services, which are fantastic. For any of your kind of disposable, usable type needs, we can look into the additional services like mop rental. And I think what's most important these days, and we're going to talk a bit about on the roundtable, is their Sanis Ultra restroom service, being able to come in and offer that increased protection for your guests, that they know that a qualified and trained professional is coming in and applying some really great chemicals to provide that additional layer of protection. Stepping more out into the public space, we would take a look at maybe the tile and the carpet deep cleaning service. But again, Cintas has a ton of really great services that if you or your members are not taking advantage of today, please give us a call. Let us know how we can help you. But I'd like to take a step further, and Santiago, if you'd skip over, I'd like to introduce the teams that have joined us today from Cintas and HD Supply. So on HD Supply, we do have Ashley Martinez, Joseph Kroll, and Brian Kilroy, who are joining us from their National Account Management team. And then from Cintas, we do have Nicole Beal and Scott Kale from their Hospitality and Gaming division. And if you give me just a second, I would love to kick off this roundtable discussion. So, all right. First question, I'm going to point over to Cintas, but ask for HD Supply to follow up. And so, again, like to have a nice casual conversation about what is it that we're seeing in the industry? What does the reopen look like? And what are you guys hearing maybe from other industries that we might be able to leverage into some best practices as it relates to hospitality? So over the past couple of months, we've really seen the country put an increased focus on cleanliness, hand hygiene, social distancing, all of these efforts to help combat the spread of this coronavirus. While some states are beginning to reopen their country, consumer confidence in these establishments seems to be a little bit in limbo. So my question to you, Cintas, is what can the hospitality industry do to help inspire the necessary confidence that the establishments are safe and sanitary and prepared for the social distancing need? And how's that different than the world 6 months ago?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, first of all, for allowing us to be a part of this. We're excited and we're looking forward to growing this partnership and helping everybody on this line any way that we can. So, but the question you asked is a great question, Stephen. And I think it's it's just the biggest challenge through this entire process is there's not a playbook out there on how to handle these situations. And it's been great to see how the hospitality industries come together to figure out some of the best ways to kind of reinstill that confidence, not just in the guests, but also the staff. And the biggest thing that we've experienced through conversations with the parent companies, the brands, the management companies, is how the guests and the staff can truly see and tell that something different is being done on the property level. So it's not good enough anymore just to say, hey, we're cleaning more. People want to physically see something different. And I think a good example is, I travel every week before all this happened. And if I went back to the same city, I'd usually stay at the same hotel. I would be able to tell if something different was in place. And I think that's what these, the guest and obviously and also the staff is going to want to see some of those things. And that physical piece is so important. And because that's what, words aren't enough anymore. And actually seeing things in action are going to be critical.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott.
Hey, I'll join on that as well. It's Nicole Beal here. I'll give you a great example. So we have at Cintas a deep cleaning service. We've had it for years, pre-COVID. We come in and deep clean the floors, the tile, the carpet. We actually even clean out the coil units in the rooms. And we partnered with the big brands on these things years ago. And the conversation was always, hey, we want Cintas to come in either at night or off hours, and definitely don't bring your truck or your cleaning hoses in during check-in. And that conversation has totally turned around now. And the conversation is, hey, Cintas, we want you there at check-in. We want to see your machines. We want our guests to see your hoses and to see your trucks so that they know we're doing more than just in-house cleaning.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole. HD Supply, as it relates to, social distancing and really helping guests see that like Cintas mentions, that the environment is different than it was 6 months ago. What types of things can you suggest, or are you hearing the brands and other industries talking about?
Yeah, this is Joe Cole. Thanks for having us on. What we're seeing from the brands is it looks like everybody's coming out with their way to clean and coming out with different versions of basically the same thing as Cintas said, is that in essence what we're trying to do is get that extra touch point. Make sure that you're touching those areas that maybe you didn't clean as much before. Going into the rooms and making sure that you're doing different types of cleaning or more often in terms of cleaning. We're seeing a lot of social distancing signs being manufactured and produced to keep that social distancing part. Depending on what brand you talk to, they have their own way of doing things, but really it's just, hey, let's clean like we're supposed to clean. Let's sanitize like we were supposed to sanitize, and let's just do it more often and more touch points. I think that's big. What we're also seeing is, as we all know, there's a lack of product availability in terms of sanitizing stands, sanitizing dispensers. So, the world's going to need to reopen with bottles, with different types of products that are for sanitizing versus those dispensers that everybody wants but nobody can get. So that's what we're seeing in the industry, is a big push in the individual bottles, maybe some gallon jugs to refill certain things, and signage. Sneeze guards are big, and depending on what brand you talk about, masks, coveralls, gloves, shoe covers are all going to be essential for the employees that are going into the guest rooms to make the guests feel more comfortable.
Awesome, Joe. I really appreciate that. As a follow-up to that, so if we start to understand these needs, right, there are going to be different products like the coveralls and the masks that we didn't have in hotels 6 months ago, or that the guests are, going to feel better seeing people clean. What types of things should hotels be considering as they start to prepare new SOPs, standard operating procedures, to really accommodate these, or maybe different inventory levels that they might want to start looking at stocking these things, in advance of any sort of supply chain challenges that might be coming?
The supply chain challenges that we have seen have been in sanitizers, but that is getting better. At least in our organization, we've seen a increase in sanitizers, different types. You're not going to get your typical Purell or your Gojo or your Georgia Pacific, but you're going to see other types of sanitizers that's just as good. We're hearing from Gojo Corporate that they might not be good and in a good stocking position until the end of the year. So we are seeing sanitizers getting better. We're also seeing masks getting better and being more readily available. So those types of things are coming around. We all have, all the manufacturers, I'm sure, have a global sourcing team that are trying to globally source this product, make it affordable, and get it into inventory as soon as possible. Gloves, masks, and the pump sanitizers will be readily available, but I do not see dispensers or stands available for a fairly long time. It's a conversation that I have on a daily basis. And then we're talking about what are you going to do going forward. Many of the brands have talked about sprayers and foggers and the electrostatic machines that seem to be all the new rage. And it might be all the new rage, but at least in my conversations with the brands, not one brand that I've talked to have actually mandated it. And right now, you can't even get the electrostatic sprayer. So yes, down the road, I think that's something that will be utilized, but not only the sprayer, but also the chemical that goes in the sprayer. So again, those are things that are being talked about, but the supply chain for those and the chemical are going to be, I believe, a long way.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. And Cintas, I mean, you know, understanding that people are interested in seeing, or at least brands want to make sure that this cleaning focus is forward. What types of things are you maybe hearing from your side about, you know, new and different standard operating procedures that might be different than the world 6 months ago?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think one, and then some of it has just been mentioned as well, but signage. Signage is going to be real important, and signage everywhere from in the bathrooms about reminding to wash your hands, mat signage where almost directing people to sanitation stations throughout a property, social distancing signage on the floors as well. So signage is a big one. As Nicole mentioned too, the times when services are being completed are things that are really being reevaluated because, you know, typically a lot of these services they wanted conducted outside of hours where there was a lot of guests. But now, as Nicole had mentioned, we're going to want the guests to see these activities taking place. The other one is messaging, a lot of messaging, and this could be messaging on an app when they check in, and that messaging could be centered around some of the things that they're doing or they've been doing to help prepare the facility and keep it clean and disinfected. Websites, you know, maybe attracting people to a website that maybe has videos of some of the different services that are being conducted throughout the property. There's also, you know, we've talked conversations around in the rooms of the kind of the default channel on the TV. You know, maybe there's videos being played of some of the different services that are being conducted, just again for that visibility piece. The other one is the sanitation stations, and you know, we've talked a lot about the hand sanitizer and the stands, but I think there's one thing is not just to make sure we sanitize the facility, but you got to sanitize the guests before they come to the facility. So the stations I think are becoming more and more popular, but on top of not just the hands. We were in talks and have conversations around a product that actually cleans the bottom of your shoe as well, and which is going to help disinfect, not track throughout the facility. Some of the other SOPs too is just reevaluating the overall hygiene program and looking at dispensers and going to more of that touchless dispenser offering to eliminate any people, you know, touching hard surfaces. In addition to We've had a lot of conversations around the hand dryers and eliminating those because just it's blowing air throughout the restroom. The amenity kits is something too, is something that there's been a high demand for. So I guess kind of look at it this way: instead of getting a bottle of water or a cookie when you check in, maybe there's an amenity kit that contains a mask, a glove, hand sanitizer, some wipes. Again, just to give that extra level of confidence. And either those could be purchased, or maybe that's something the hotel just wants to provide. And also disinfectant stations in the rooms. And I know disinfectant wipes are a challenge to get a hold of right now, but no different than in the gym. When you're done working out, you wipe the equipment down. People might want that extra ability to disinfect their room and have that type of station in their room to just give the extra confidence that they wiped it down to feel even more comfortable. And then also the wearing of the PPE, the masks, the shields, as HD Supply mentioned. And then the final one I'll say too is the professionally laundering of the garments that to meet the CDC standards. And the best way I can kind of give an example of that, in the food processing industry, it's always been where food manufacturers require their employees to come to work with their street clothes. They have to put their uniform on, and then they have to leave their uniform on site before they go home and put their normal clothes back on. And I see that being more of a common practice, especially with the housekeeping, just to make sure and to give the confidence not only to the guests, but also to the staff that those clothes aren't being taken home, being exposed to someone maybe has COVID, and then bringing that back into their facility.
If I can just add some of that too, I mean, in terms of that, I mean, we've been talking about hotels, certain hotels and certain hotel brands looking at mandating what we call ISO bags that are biodegradable. So the housekeeper takes the textiles and the linen out of the room and puts it in an ISO bag, and takes that ISO bag and puts it in the laundry. And at a certain temperature, it's 140 degrees, that ISO bag dissolves in the wash. So you're not collecting laundry from every different room and putting it in the same laundry cart and then bringing it down to laundry. So sort of things like that is even being considered going forward.
Joseph, that's a great point. This is Nicole Beal with Cintas. And back to the earlier points that we were talking about, how the guest is going to want to visually see things. We're trying to work with the management companies and the brands to give them talking points to show the guest all of the things they can't see, right? Like he just said, the guest isn't going to see that procedure being done. The guest isn't going to see that they chose a laundry company for uniforms that can launder to CDC guidelines. And they're spending a lot of money on that. So we're talking about cards that we can give them when they check in their little sanitization kits that just lists everything, because that's going to be expensive, but it is what's going to set the hotels apart in the guest's mind.
That's really great, and I really appreciate everybody's input there. And it sounds like there are a lot of really neat new ideas that are coming out of how do we collectively attack this issue of the possibility of infection and really ensuring that safe and sanitary environment. And so, I mean, with all of these new products and these new things coming to market, what should hotels be asking themselves or asking of suppliers in order to vet out a new supplier or a new product they might want to consider for their operation, prior to moving forward with it? I'll go ahead and shoot this one to Cintas first.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a wild west out there right now, and so I think it's a great question, because it's and I've kind of have it broken down into three specific areas. I think the first one is creating a partnership with a steady source and a reliable company. So I think that's something that, as people pick their suppliers, make sure that they're a steady source and they're extremely reliable and dependable, because there's a lot of sporadic spot buys happening right now, obviously, which is what people need to get going, but that's not sustainable for the long term, and obviously people want to make sure they have a managed program in place. The second piece to that is making sure you're aligned with a supplier with a global supply chain capabilities that has been in the space prior to COVID-19. And the reason that's so important is because there's a lot of fly-by-night companies, people trying to be entrepreneurial, which is great, trying to get into some of the space, but they don't necessarily have the buying power or the leverage. And they might be able to get these one-time purchases to somebody, but then what's that going to look like in the future? And I think that's what everyone understands. This is not just going to be something they need for a immediate need. It's something that's going to need to be ongoing moving forward. And I think part of that too is making sure you have a supplier that is aligning with a vetting process to make sure the right vendors are being worked with, because there's a lot of, I'm sure you've all experienced, there's a lot of fraud out there. And so there's important that you work with an organization that has extreme vetting process on who their vendors are to deliver the quality product expected. And I think the third thing is I think the biggest is people need to move fast right now in their decision making and how they go about doing their business. They've got to be more proactive and be visionary with their decisions and their products, because as Joseph mentioned, I mean, the product is that inventory is a challenge, but when people have that opportunity to jump on it and secure that product, they've got to move fast to secure that, but also be visionary, knowing that, and I know it's a tough pill to swallow right now when there's not a lot of revenue being generated and coming in, but you know, the dynamic of this is going to change as the states continue to open up and the demand for the non-essential businesses start coming to life, and this product is going to start getting gobbled up even more. So being visionary, like, hey, let's go ahead and lock in product, not just for this month and next month. Let's get some product locked in the months to come as well.
Hey, can I jump in there on
if I can
that?
add to okay.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, and I'm sure HD Supply, you have the same scenario, but we take care of the hospitality and gaming industry, but our companies take care of multiple companies, right? Chipotle, Wells Fargo, other companies outside of hospitality. And what I have learned through this process is that this industry is just not quick to make decisions. And, you know, RFPs and bids and vendors. And unfortunately, I've had to have some really tough conversations because Wells Fargo comes in and they're ready to make the decision. They need 4,000 stands. They're going to pay for it. They're going to sign, and there goes the inventory, right? And so we've got to really work with our customers in the new normal, to your point about being visionary, Scott. That's going to be, there's some discomfort there, but our companies can help them if they can work with us to make those decisions quicker. We can get that inventory for them.
Yeah, and to Scott and Nicole's point, you're right. I mean, HD Supply has different verticals that can make decisions based at the vertical level or the management company level or institutional or multifamily, where hospitality's model of franchisees is much more difficult to sustain and keep product for a large hotel brand because they're franchisees. The franchisees purchase the product on their own. So a Hilton or a Marriott or somebody of that nature is not going to purchase a large portion of product to dedicate to their franchisees. So that's the one challenge we have in hospitality going forward. And then to Scott's point earlier, we are getting inundated daily by companies that are pen manufacturers, are manufacturing product that go into extended stay hotels, and they're coming to us with sanitizers and stands and sanitizing stations. And what we do is we have to vet everybody, but the manufacturers that we are working with are the ones that have already been in that janitorial and cleaning space and in the and in the PPE space, and we vet everybody before going forward and bringing the product in, and we bring it in as quickly as possible. So one other point I'd like to make is I found out today that to your point, you've got to act quickly. Acrylic is starting to be a commodity. We're running low on acrylic. So those sneeze guards that are out there, our properties have to move quick and purchase those if they want them, because maybe by the end of the summer, acrylic will be at a shortage and we'll be waiting months and months and months to get that product. So things like that we're not really thinking about that will become a shortage, we need to move quickly, as Scott mentioned. And then I guess the last thing is, in terms of thinking ahead, there's a lot of conversations regarding UV lighting and UV lighting cleaning, either guest rooms or back of house. So everything's changing daily. People are testing different things. So again, it's a very, very moving target. We found that the UV lighting program for back of house is a very strong success, but UV lighting for the room is completely up in the air. There's machines out there that can go in the room and supposedly clean the room in 15 minutes using UV light, but is that a viable option when they're $25,000 a piece? So there's a lot of different things that are coming up that are moving pieces.
So a lot of these new items, let's take the $25,000 UV light and set it over here for a second, but let's start talking about the consumable items that again are new items, or possibly that again we need to move quick on in order to secure the next month to 6 months worth of inventory. This is a lot of new cost that is hitting a historically relatively low margin business model. So HC Supply, what are some of the larger hotel brands and maybe segments outside of lodging? What are people considering as a way to possibly think about offsetting this cost?
Yeah, what I've heard is upcharging for certain scenarios. If you are an overnight guest or a multiple night stay guest, if you want your room cleaned every day, there may be an upcharge on that. There may be an upcharge on having your linen and terry, basically your room made up before you come in, instead of maybe handing your linen and terry ahead of time. They're looking at upcharges for a certain brand is actually looking towards the future of touchless rooms per se. So touchless faucet in the bathroom, touchless soap dispenser in the bathroom, touchless toilet seats that close and open themselves, touchless flush valves, product that goes in the room that you can control everything in the room, television, lighting, everything via your cell phone or via another product in the room. I mean, and those rooms will have a large upcharge. So that's what we're seeing in the industry, at least that I'm seeing in my conversations, is that's how properties and that's how brands may be able to pay for those types of items.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's I think from we're hearing a lot of the same things that Joe just mentioned, and a couple other things too. We're hearing is really evaluating some of the extras, and what I mean by extra, from product and also from a labor standpoint. For example, eliminating of the mini bars and other room amenities like the pens, the paper, and using that spend to replace more of those new essential amenities that we've been talking a lot about, with the mask and the gloves and the disinfectants and sanitation stations. We've also heard, in addition to upcharge, but also cleaning rooms only when people they're checked out. So if they're at a hotel for 3 days, that room does not get cleaned until they're gone after those 3 days. And in some properties, hotels, brands were doing that already, offering that as an option if people wanted it. But I think that's probably going to be becoming more of a practice because it's just more risk of the housekeeper going in and out. And then the other two other things is just more reevaluating room service, what that's going to look like. And Santiago talked about that a little bit, as well as valet. Because because that's going to make an interesting dynamic of people getting in their cars and driving their cars around, and what's the concern that people might have with that. And there's also a large cost with that. So that's some of those are things that might be looked at of removing and eliminating or reducing to help offset some of these expenses that are considered new essential products.
I've even heard, brands thinking of getting rid of any coffee makers and the coffee makers in the room.
Yep.
How are you going to how are you going to sanitize the dirtiest thing in the room, which is usually the remote control? I've heard everything from a product out there, obviously that's been successful called Clean Remote, to remote covers, to even a product called Phone Soap, where you put the product, the remote or your phone or something of that nature in a box that's put on the counter, and you put the remote in there and it sanitizes it using UV light. All of these things have been talked about to try and make the guests more comfortable.
So we've talked a lot about making the guests more comfortable, and I think that's important, right? As we reopen, as we start to emerge from quarantine and start interacting with the world physically again, it's absolutely important that we feel secure, that we feel safe, that we're walking into a sanitary environment, and that we are minimizing the spread of any diseases. But I'd like to shift the next question towards the employees that need to walk into these hotels, that might be working in somewhat closer quarters. What types of protocols should be considered by hotel management to ensure that same safe and sanitary workplace for their employees that they do for their guests? And I'd like to ask HD Supply to kick this one off for me.
Sorry, I was muted. One thing that actually I just heard today, and we've had this discussion before, but before an employee even comes into the facility, having a touchless thermometer at the facility to test the temperature of the employee before walking into the property may be a new norm. Southwest Airlines, I believe, announced it today that they were going to be doing something similar to passengers before they're able to go through the security line, something of that nature. So protecting the employees by making sure that someone that may have symptoms is not in close quarters with everybody else. So those electro-thermometers, those touchless thermometers might be the next, and we're seeing a very high demand for those as a cure, at least to start, to keep your employees safe. And then again, having them have their own masks that need to be washed, having things changed out on a consistent basis so they're not going from room to room, utilizing the same PPE is going to be critical in keeping the employees safe. And again, as I think Scott and Nicole both said, signage in the back of house, is also the other piece. Making sure you're washing your hands, making sure you're doing things that should be known and already done, but now signage is going to be even more critical. And the signage is out there already for these properties to be able to purchase.
Yeah, I would just add to that I think a lot of it's same as the guests. The employees need to see with their eyes too what's being done differently, and some of the things, the proper PPE that we've discussed, the masks and gloves, sanitizers on their carts. We talked about the garments and how they're being processed and washed, and the thermometer stations. Joe's right that there's a huge demand for that. For obviously making sure the staff doesn't come in sick, especially because a lot of those people will work because they have to work, and they might fight through feeling ill, and they come in and they run that risk. So I think the thermometer piece is going to be huge. The other thing is providing the proper cleaning tools for the staff. They're going to be asked to do more to make sure they've got the proper tools to be able to do more when it comes to cleaning. The other, and I think this is probably one of the most important ones, is training and education. There's so much training and education that needs to be provided to staff. And for example, we've got COVID-19 training. We've got hazard communication training and hospitality, sanitization training, kind of some of the how-to trainings, how to properly fit and wear a face mask, and proper ways to wash your hands. So I think just little things like that can, by those 30-minute training, maybe webinars that they have to be a part of, is going to be important for them. And I think the last piece that I have here is, in addition to those things, they're going to want to see what's being done above and beyond what they're doing to disinfect and sanitize the facility, because they know there's only so much that they can do. And Johnny Joe mentioned this earlier, the electrostatic offering. There's the deep cleaning of the rooms with the carpet cleaning, the surface sanitizer and disinfectant services, and then the restroom cleaning services for the public restroom. So I think because they're in the facility more than the guests are. They're there, maybe 8 hours. So they're going to have more exposure than anybody. So they want to make sure that they're showing that, hey, we're not only providing more for you to help clean this facility, but here's what we're also doing to protect you and the guests and going above and beyond our typical cleaning protocols.
Awesome. Well, Ashley, Joseph, Brylan, Nicole, and Scott, thank you very much. I know that we are all really in this unprecedented situation, and we're all trying to help navigate to that new normal, and knowing that we've got strong supplier partnerships available through the program with HD Supply and Cintas that have these fantastic ideas, these connections with the large hotel brands, and even beyond the hospitality industry to really, share best practices, understand what we don't know and what we think might work and how we're trying this together, because I think that's the most important thing, is that we're all in this together and we will all get through this together. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your participation and your collaboration with this event today.